Bladesworn was one of my most anticipated specs for the End of Dragons release. However, unfortunately, it got overly nerfed, and the fact that it still has some clunky mechanics with the gunblade not being able to be stowed, it became unpopular. However, the usability increased drastically with the latest patch because now you have more ammo on the gun stinger on the pistol, and there's a interesting interaction that makes you really powerful against those rangers in World vs. World. So we'll go over that in my full guide to how I like to play the Bladesworn in World vs. World roaming. So we're going to go over the build, the skill rotations, and we're going to go over some in-situation commentary. So let's get right into the build. I go for full Berserker stats because this is a burst build. You don't have a lot of sustained damage because you're mostly reliant on ammo. So each of those ammo charges needs to get a lot of value. So burst damage is really important, and therefore we go for full Berserker and the pack runes because you only really get Fury from your Gunblade 5 skill, which you don't always want to be using, or your Axe 2, in which case you're already doing damage. So you kind of want to have the extra Fury duration from the pack runes, and it also gives you a little bit more swiftness, which is nice. Then you want to go for a axe and a pistol with the cleansing sigil and an absorption sigil. You're going to be using your Dragon Slash, which will often stun, and that can interrupt enemies. And right after your Dragon Slash will land, you'll be able to do a big burst right after that. And absorption has a high priority on removing the protection boon. So you'll often remove protection, and then you'll be able to land a really big burst. So it's really important to killing those tankier classes with that protection uptime. So definitely take the absorption sigil. Cleansing is nice though, of course, because you're kind of weak to conditions as a warrior. For traits, we're going to go for strength and defense. We go for the peak performance trait because it'll give you a little bit more damage modifiers. You can go for restorative strength, but I don't feel that it has the best synergy with combat stimulant anyways. And peak performance is still going to get you value on Bull's charge cooldown. Then we go for great fortitude because it gives you extra burst damage and a little bit more vitality because you can be squishy sometimes. And then we go for Berserker's power. This is really important because normally you would take Might Makes Right on a PvP build because it gives you sustain and dodges, but you're not really gaining that much might on this build. You do gain might from using Unyielding Dragon, but you're not always just sitting there charging up the might. So it's really important to get Berserker's power because this will give you 21% more damage when you have max stacks of it, and that's a lot of damage which you're going to need to get that burst to really finish off enemies with the limited amount of damage you have. In defense, take the Shield Master trait because even though we're not using a shield, Aegis will still reflect projectiles, and we gain a lot of Aegis on this build. So as long as you have Aegis up and it doesn't get stripped by a non-projectile skill, you will reflect projectiles, which is extremely powerful when you're in open field and getting shot at by multiple projectile classes. It really increases your survivability, and this is one of the main reasons why Bladesworn can even exist in roaming right now. Then I go for Resilient Roll for the resistance on dodge. This is really important because sometimes you'll be immobilized and that can get you killed easily. However, you can't dodge if you're already immobilized, so you kind of have to use your dodges preemptively. Then we go for the Cleansing Ire trait. This gives you a lot of cleanse over time and gives you more flow when you're hit, but you can go for the Stalwart Strength trait because this will give you a lot more stability and more damage. However, it's kind of greedy because there's a lot of conditions in World vs. World, and removing them with Cleansing Ire is usually a lot better value. In Bladesworn, take the Swift as the Wind trait because we have plenty of movement skills to get up that swiftness. We're not using Discipline, so you really need the swiftness here. And then we go for the Unshakable Mountain trait. Whenever you use the last ammo round, you get Barrier, and your Pistol 5 skill will always use all of the rounds. So every time you use Pistol 5, it gives you 1,000 Barrier, and essentially it has almost no cooldown, that skill. So you can just keep spamming Pistol 5 and getting a lot of Barrier, or just spamming your skills as normal is a good way to keep up your sustain. You can go for the Fierce's Fire trait, which will give you even more burst damage, but the barrier is really key for survival, so depending on your situation, you can choose which one there. And then of course go for Unyielding Dragon, which is going to make your Dragon Slash unblockable, unblindable, and give you more might, which is just going to be important for playing around a lot of those classes that have blocks. You can get through their defenses and then burst them. So let's talk about Bladesworn a little bit, since it's kind of a awkward playstyle if you're used to playing warrior. It's very different. You don't just go in, you have to do a lot of kiting, and there's a lot of ranged options, so positioning is way more important. So let's just start off with the axe and pistol weapon set. You've got Dragon's Roar, which does a lot of damage, and it's kind of immobile, so you usually want to get a stun or use it defensively when someone's coming at you. But then you've got Gunstinger, which is a leap, and it gives you Aegis, and will give you more of the ammo on your 5 skills. So you want to use this a lot of times to get into range to use your Dragon's Roar, but then enemies will usually move away. So oftentimes what you actually want to do is the Dragon's Roar, and then recharge it with your 4 skill afterwards to get back into melee range, because it kind of knocks you backwards, and then you can use your axe too. So often the combo is actually to do 5, 4, and then 2. And then you've got your Axe 3, which is just a ranged cripple, which can do a lot of damage to enemies below a certain health threshold. Always just spam this out because it's such a low cooldown, and it can cripple targets to help you get in there and do your burst. So generally, yeah, your Axe 2 does a lot of damage, your 5 does a lot of damage, but they need you to be in melee range. So how are you going to get into melee range as a Bladesworn? Well, that's your Dragon Trigger. So whenever you gain Adrenaline, right, that's essentially flow. You use flow to enter into your Dragon Trigger, and this charges your Dragon Slash. Now you generally want to use the 2 skill if you want to do damage, because this is the most reliable, because it has like multiple hit windows. So if they dodge it, and then you're still in range after their dodge ends, you'll hit them with the back end of the Dragon Slash. So it's really important to use that 2 skill, because it is just the most reliable to land damage. However, the 2 is not the most reliable for sustain, because a lot of your traits require you to use the Dragon Slash, and if you miss with the Dragon Slash, then you don't get any of the, for example, you don't get Adrenal Health or Berserker's Power. So you really want to make sure that you land it, but one thing that's really important is that the 3 skill, which is actually a ranged Dragon Slash, even if it doesn't hit the target, it will, say if I target over here and I use the Dragon Slash 3, it hits nothing, but I still get the Berserker's Power and the Adrenal Health. So you often want to use the 3 skill if you're not sure you're going to hit, and oftentimes it's a safer play because it will not move you closer to the enemy if they're in a dangerous location. So you can use the 3, and that'll give you way more sustain, but the 2 skill is way more aggressive, right? Because it gets you into range to land your burst damage in melee range and use your Axe 2 and 5, and it stuns them to set up that. So you kind of want to decide between the 2 and the 3 usually, and the 1 is really not that good because it has a single attack frame, so if they dodge it, then they dodge the whole thing, and it's got no movement to it, so if they dodge out of range, then they're going to just completely dodge it. When you finish the Dragon Trigger, you're going to be placed into your Gunblade, and your Gunblade has a lot of ranged abilities, which are explosions, and explosions will give you Guns and Glory, which is a huge ferocity modifier. So you always want to keep up your damage modifiers in this build with explosions and with landing your Dragon Slash. And then you can see, yeah, you've got Berserker's Power here and Guns and Glory, but you also get more Guns and Glory the more explosions you hit. And the 2 skill hits multiple explosions in melee range, so that caps out your Guns and Glory at 10 seconds. So you really want to use this in melee range a lot of times to set up your burst. And then what you want to do is your 2 skill, which is going to do more damage the more ammo you have, which caps out at 2. And this can do a lot of damage with some modifiers to it. So if we go in with the explosion buff here and then we use the 3 immediately, it does like 6k. I've seen it do way more than that as well, but yeah, it does a lot of damage. Now your Cyclone Trigger is your defensive ability because it gives you Aegis. So you want to use that when you're getting chased by projectile classes, but you can also use that in melee range because it's a really fast attack and it generally just prevents the counter pressure, right? Because it gives you Aegis. Now, the break step is really important too because it gives you your Fury uptime, and you need Fury to crit. So that's one of your damage modifiers as well. You've got Fury, you've got your Berserker's Power from the Dragon Slash, you've got your explosions as well. If you've got all those buffs up, then you're going to be doing good damage. Now for utilities, I like to go for Combat Stimulant because the defense trait line gives you protection whenever you use a heal skill, and you generally want to use protection before you take damage, not after you take damage, which is what Mending is more so like. So you can go for Mending, but the Combat Stimulant is kind of like preparatory, so it works out better with the protection duration. And then you've got Shake It Off, of course, because you need to remove conditions. Bull's Charge, still a very good staple for any warrior build because you can use it defensively to get out of, dangerous situations, or you can use it as you're engaged for a long stun. Just make sure that you don't use your 3 skill after you use your Bull's Charge because then you'll break their stun by dazing them. Then I like to go for Balance Stance because you are very susceptible to CC while you're sitting there using your Dragon Trigger. So Balance Stance is nice, but you can replace it with Endure Pain because the build is kind of squishy when you're getting focused by power classes, and Endure Pain is the best way to handle that. So generally I like to start out by going in with the break step and then using the Cyclone Trigger to prevent any of the initial attacks or projectiles coming at me. Then I'll use the 2 skill, and from here I should have a decent amount of flow. I'll swap back into my axe and pistol set, and I'll go in with the Gunstinger again. Use the pistol 5 just to get that out there because I want to get as much guns and glory as possible, even if it doesn't land. I'll use the axe 2 or the 3, and at that point I've baited out some dodges, and I'll go for the Dragon Slash. If I want to go for a safe Dragon Slash, I'll use the 3. If I want to go for extra damage, I'll go for the 2. And then once you land it, if you get a big stun, you can go for the 2 into the 3. And then 4 once you're about to back off and you don't want to get counter pressured. Or if you enter into your Dragon Trigger while your F1 is off cooldown, you can cancel the aftercast of your Dragon Slash and you'll press F1 and then you'll be right on top of your target as soon as you press F1. So you get the stun and then you can immediately start using your axe abilities. So from there you've stunned them, you want to use your pistol 5 and then your axe 2 and then axe 3. And that is a huge burst when you have all those damage modifiers. In a 1v1 against a Harbinger, I need to do a lot of pressure because they have so much sustain, but also a lot of pressure of their own. So what I'm going to try to do is use a burst with my Dragon Slash into one of my axe abilities or my gunblade, and then use Aegis to block any of their projectiles, reflect them back at them, and then follow through with the next burst to hopefully get the kill. So here I'm going for the Dragon Slash on the reach skill because it's the most reliable. It gives me cleanse and it gets me the buffs for the next burst, but I do have weakness on me, so I'm trying to just survive until I can get that off me, and I get CC'd and I miss my Bull's Charge, so I'm not in a good spot. I just got feared. I'm gonna go for the Dragon Slash here very soon because it's up, but I want them to, I'm just getting feared tons, and now I've got chill on me, so it's not good. Try to go in range. I reflect some of their projectiles, but I miss the Dragon Slash because they leap over it. So we're not in a good spot here because we didn't gain adrenal health or our damage modifiers because we went for the aggressive one and it didn't land. So now I'm going to go for the 3 here just to get some cleansing and make sure that I get the sustain back. I go in melee range, but I'm not really doing much damage because Harbingers are extremely tanky, though I do get a really good CC there, and that removes their protection because of the absorption sigil, and that allowed me to do a lot of burst damage. So I'm going to go for the kill here with the Bull's Charge. I land some decent damage and I'm going to Dragon Slash, but they use their elite skill and that gives them a lot of counter pressure and sustain. So the new plan is actually to survive because they're doing a lot of damage to me. I'm going to try to use my Dragon Slash, but it gets feared. So I'm in a bad spot. I get blinded because it converts my fury into blind when I get corrupted. And we've got a lot of flow here to use the Dragon Slash. We land it, which is good, into the axe burst. So we're doing a decent amount of pressure, but I need to finish the kill or they're going to out sustain me. I don't have any Aegis left, so I'm going to go for the 3 skill here as quickly as possible. The 4 skill there for the Aegis. That's my last Aegis, so I really need to go for the kill right now. So we land a nice axe 3, the 5, and now we're going to Dragon Slash and get the kill. Here's a roaming situation where I'm chasing a Mechanist out of my tower, and they use their port out of my Bull's Charge. So I'm going to try to chase with my range damage on the gunblade, use the Dragon Slash as fast as possible just to get the boost for some distance. And right now I should probably use my tactical reload, because you should just use that whenever you're kind of low on cooldowns but you have time to cast it. Regardless, I land my Dragon Slash into my axe burst, and that gets the down. I can stomp with Balanced Stance, and now I can reset and look for the next kill on the Chronomancer here. So I use the axe 5 just to get some modifiers, and I land my Dragon Slash boost into a wall, so we don't really get anything out of that. But we're going to land the Bull's Charge, use our 4 and 2 in the gunblade, and then my Dragon Slash is available. I'm going to use the boost right after they use their dodge, and this is really nice because that allows us to get a full stun into our burst. Now there's a Ranger here, and I really need to cleave this because they're going to res, and there's another Mesmer. I use the 3 skill with 2 ammo, and that's going to daze, which prevents them from resing. And now I need to go back in to make sure that they don't get this res. I land a nice Dragon Slash. The 2 skill lands on pretty much all of them, and I'm going to use my Dragon's Roar into the 4 skill, so I get that kill there. And now I'm just going to leave, use as much of my damage on that down body with the cleaving pistol attacks, and then I can get out with the 5 skill on the gunblade and reposition with the Dragon Slash as well. One last thing to note is that the Bladesworn is actually really good against these elusive classes like Mesmer and Thief, because normally a warrior gets abused by them because they get bursted and then they'll disengage or go in stealth, and then the warrior doesn't have time, or they don't have the mobility to keep up and counter pressure them. But because I have range damage and a lot of mobility with the Dragon Slash, and of course Dragon Slash will also still track the target while they're in stealth, it gives you a lot of potential to counter pressure some of the most powerful classes in World vs. World that use a lot of stealth. So yeah, that's pretty much how you want to be playing the Bladesworn in World vs. World. If you like this content, then be sure to like the video, subscribe if you want more, check out the links in the description if you want to support me more. Thanks to all of my patrons who support my content, and I will see you all next time.